all their wisdom to answer all of your questions that you may have about dance. Careers in dance. There we go, I got it out. So at the end, here's Pamela Young. She has an esteemed career working with a number of art organizations in the Cleveland community, including Mocha Cleveland, Cleveland Public Art, Dancing Wheels, Professional Flair, and Cleveland Ballet. She received her BS in Design at the University of Cincinnati and a certificate of nonprofit management from Case Mendel Center. Mendel Center, excuse me, for nonprofit management. So that's a great thing to have. We need more of you. We need more Pamelas. She joined Dance Cleveland as executive director in March of 2003. So thanks for joining us, Pamela.
Thank you.
We have Lynn Deering here. Thank you, Pamela. Yes. We have Lynn Deering. She directs the dance program and dance company for Cleveland State University. She enjoys using gestural and full body motion to explore human interactions. Recognitions of her work include NOL Achievement Award, CSE Distinguished Faculty Award, OhioDance Award, and the OAC Individual Artist Award. So wonderful. And we have Linda Jackson. Yes, we met Linda last night. She made her professional debut with Baltimore Ballet, and she was also with Rilevsky Ballet under the direction of Edward Villela and Michael Verdon. She joined the Cleveland Ballet in 1983 and danced for 14 years. She was on the faculty of the School of Cleveland San Jose Ballet and held management and public relations responsibilities. She joined Playhouse Square in 2000 and currently serves as the Associate Director of Community Engagement and Education. So all this beautiful space that we're in right now. So thank you. So I kind of got the feeling that most of us are interested in maybe what makes a company work, what makes it function, the day-to-day functions, and the different roles within that, and as also performers, choreographers, that sort of thing. So I'm going to just kind of pass that on to our panel and let them kind of start giving us some ideas of what that means. So everything from the smaller companies with 4 dancers to big companies who have our nonprofit managers and HRs and that sort of thing. So does anyone who wants to start that?
I'll start with the small companies because so many times you have to create your own company, create your own work, create your own venues to present your work. So the more you can prepare yourself to sort of be your own representative in terms of obviously preparation in terms of your dancing, but also your creative work, that you prepare yourself that you can make your own work and explore that as much as possible. And then you have to have a way of connecting with people. So that's also one of the most important things I can recommend to all of you is, and part of this is why you're doing this whole conference here, is that you are getting a chance to know other people because no one really works alone, and you want to make really good friends, and they tend to then help you out, and a lot of times it is your best friend that you start your work with, right? You start to create your own choreography. Next thing you know, you are showing things in the showcase that we're appointing the informal showing tomorrow, and I guess that's where I'll start, and I'll let others speak from there.
Well, you've worked with a couple of dance companies. My perspective is so different.
Right. And it's one of the things that I think you said is so key, that we really are in a relationship business. And that starts at a very young age. You have a relationship with your teacher and all the things that they can give you, and you learn, and that journey continues. And especially in a company, just because you're a dancer doesn't mean your only relationships are with the dancers in the room. You have to work with a community of people, just as we're a community in the classroom, it's a community in that organization. And relationships are very, very important. So in Cleveland Ballet, for example, it was a large ballet company. And that actually was right here in this building. I took my first job at Cleveland Ballet right here in this building 31 years ago. But it was an incredible organization, an artistic department. As Lynn said, that's really where it starts, and that's key even in a major company. So the artistic director, his or her artistic staff, there'll be choreographers that you work in, so there are people that are not always in the company, as you know, but that come to be a guest to work with you. And that artistic department then reads over into the production department. So we were fortunate as a producing ballet organization to have our own costume shop, our own scene shop that created all the costumes, scenery, and then you work with the stagehands and everyone that worked with them, and then a huge administrative department, which I know Pam will share a little bit more about, but that included the marketing, the development, the ticket operations, and a board of directors, which is also very key. So all of those different parts coming together, and then a lot of education and outreach. And of course, we, as a major ballet company, had our own school as well, so there was a faculty. But within each of those departments, there's so many key people that make the world what it is, and one can't really function without the other. And one of the things I always tried to do as a dancer that I felt was so important was to be very aware and very open to everything else that was going on. As a major ballet company, we had a union for the dancers, and I actually served as the president of the union for many years, but that was invaluable experience, especially for what I'm doing now. I was able to go to every board meeting, I was able to understand that administrative side and what happened. I was able to negotiate contracts, and it was college without going to college in a way. So one of my other maybe best pieces of advice is just to be open and to absorb everything you can. We've had many Broadway performers come here through Playhouse Square that just say take every opportunity that it is. Like Lynn said, there's not a job or a performance for you to do, make your own. Same thing, create every opportunity that you can, or take advantage of every opportunity that is there for you.
So I'm really coming at this from a very different place because I'm not a dancer. I've never been a dancer. So what I think you all do is magic to me. I'm just always in awe when I see people be able to move and to be on stage and to be able to communicate in the ways that you do. So I'm the executive director of an organization that gets to look at dance companies. And I look at maybe 200 dance companies a year, and we select companies to be on a season. And I look at dancers and I hear about what they're working on and I hear about the projects. And so, you know, it's being in the dance world. And one of the things I would share with you, sort of as an aside, is that today you're in a community of people here. This community of dance is not an enormous community. Even if you think, oh, look at all these people, and you multiply that times 50 states and the whole country, it must be huge. It's not that large. It's the dance ecosystem across the United States is a really small group of people. And you actually can pick up a phone and call people, and they will, for the most part, talk to you. You can call a dancer and say, I'm thinking of becoming a dancer. Would you give me 5 minutes for some time? And they would be happy to do that. So don't ever say, oh, I could never do that. Because if you want your career to go where you want your career to go, you need to pick up the phone, you need to ask questions, you need to go and observe, you need to see, and you need to learn, you need to challenge your own thinking in the broadest possible ways. So in the administrative part, I run an organization that brings dance companies. We have to negotiate contracts, we have to do a myriad of things, and we'll talk a little bit about all of those things. But it meant building a whole slew of skills along the way. I sort of came out of school in architecture. So how did I get from architecture to over here? And I think anybody you talk to, you start someplace and you think this is where you're going, and the road is curved, and you end up over here. And along the way, you've realized, wow, I really love working with artists. I really love the creative part of it. Well, dance is in a three-dimensional form. It's on a stage or in a space or in an alley. It's being performed everywhere. And in a lot of ways, the architecture of the space and the lighting and all of the components that go into it, you know, feed where sort of my aesthetic background comes from. I would never have imagined that I'd be working in the field of dance, but yet here I am. So one of the biggest skills when I was at Cleveland Ballet, I was in the development department, because most dance companies, although not all dance companies and ballet companies of any size, are nonprofit organizations. And nonprofit organizations doesn't mean that they don't make a profit. At the end of the year, it's called surplus if you have, and it's called a deficit if you lose money. And unfortunately, more of them run a deficit than they have a surplus. And so that's one of the real problems with dance. It's an expensive art form, and it is very hard to manage. And dance companies go out of business. Dance companies can't survive, not because they don't have amazing dancers and incredible choreographers and great spirit. They go out of business because they haven't been managed well. So think in your own self, what skills do you have that could go towards helping an organization be managed? Because if you have your own dance company, you have to do that. And one of the more key is the money. It's about the money. Where is it coming from and where is it going? How is a budget created? When is the money coming in? How there's earned income, which you get, from your ticket sales. And so you're going to do 4 performances and you're going to hope that you have this much in ticket sales across the year, but that's not enough to sustain it. Where's the rest of this money coming from? You live, if you're in Northeast Ohio, and I think probably most of you are, we have a Foundation Center library. It's actually across the street this way in the Hanna building on the top floor. It's free, you can go in. You can actually research every foundation and government foundation, corporate foundation, and charitable foundation city, like the Cleveland Foundation, George Gunn Foundation. You can see what they fund, how they fund, when they take proposals. You can, if you're a good writer, if you find that you have great writing skills, I love you already. Because grant writers tell a story. They tell a story of why what you're doing is really important, and they present that to a foundation in hopes that that foundation will say, I see that, I want to support that, and they then can give you funding. Dance Cleveland is in a wonderful position in that we have a very large number of foundation funders and government funders who support our organization. If we didn't have those funders, we would not be in existence. We cannot exist on the ticket sales. We cannot exist. Even though we're bringing the best companies in the world to stage here, we could not exist as an organization on the ticket sales. So I'm going to be brief, but we have, so fundraising and development are key, being a good writer, being a good communicator, telling a story. We have marketing, and Sarah, who is a dancer and a dance teacher, is our marketing person. She went to school for dance and realized that she should build some other skills and developed communication skills, and she's amazing. She helps us with audience development, because if we had the best dance companies in the world here and nobody came, they'd still perform and we'd still pay them. So we have to be able to communicate about that. And then we have database, we have a whole range of administrative kinds of things, budgeting, board communications, and all of those kinds of things that make an organization. But they take really different kinds of skills.
Right, I think just my role as a dancer in the companies was how much we were utilized to do just that. We were also asked, maybe you need to go to Channel 5 and do an interview at 5:30 a.m. And then you need to be back in person by 10. These things were common, so you have to be able to advocate for yourself as well as for the company that you're working for. I think that there are so many things we're high schoolish, moving towards college, towards dance career. How do you make that decision? Right? How do you make the decision to pursue college first versus your dance career first? How do you balance that? And what are the possibilities? You have different types of companies. You have the Broadway sector. You have film, video, music video, this sort of type of thing. We could also get into the things such as tourist attractions, cruise ship. Anyone want to kind of?
Well, and I think it's different depending what direction you're going in, and then I can probably speak on a couple different sides of this, but as a ballet dancer, especially as a woman, you start very young. So college wasn't an opportunity. If I was going to have a professional career in ballet, I was going to do it as a teenager. So I had my first professional job at 16 and really at 17. And those experiences, again, were invaluable, but that's something that what ballet, the path that's usually followed there. That doesn't mean that going to a university, excuse me, like Cleveland State or anything like that isn't an option. But depending on that path, and Pam, you talked about that journey, one of the things I would say is knowing what that goal is and what you're really going to do, whatever those options are, is key, just as it is for an administrator. There's a mission, there's a vision. You need to have that personal one as well. So for a ballet dancer, it was to train. I grew up in upstate New York. By the time I was 15, I knew I had pretty much gone as far as I could in my local community, and it was time to make a move to go to New York City. And I had a scholarship at 15 to study in New York. I went to high school in New York, and as I said, was dancing by that time. But contemporary dance, modern dance, it's a little different path.
And, you know, it's sort of interesting because if you love dance, you can find a pathway into it somehow. Yeah, it's such a huge, broad field in a certain respect, and just from what everyone is saying here, because there's opportunities everywhere, and first it just takes that love, which of course, you know, speaking to the converted here, we all love dance, but that's a big thing. And yet, oftentimes, and I think it's changing a little bit, most of the time, dancers wouldn't get introduced to modern or contemporary dance until they came to the university, because that's really where it got its stronghold, you know, way back last century. So, and part of it also is the sort of liberal arts education that goes with dance. You learn how dance connects to all the other arts, but you also learn how it connects to business, and you learn how it connects to history and all those kind of things. So everyone does take different pathways into it, and you want to explore as much as you can. That's a big deal also. Yeah, anything that opens up in terms of different types of classes or meeting different dancers from different areas, and, you know, learning things like this. I also want to mention too, you know, as we were talking and Pam was talking about dance is not for profit, then there's also the dance where you know, you're planning on owning your own studio, or, you know, the commercial approach to it as well. So there's also that. So recognize that there's all these roads to it, and the more information you can gain, the better with that. And you know, of course, the university, I went into the university and never left. You know, 35 years later, I'm still at a university. And through that, even that pathway, it's been changing in terms of what I have doing at the university. That's why I'm at the university. That's why I go every single day, so I can keep learning, thinking about that. But yeah, you know, you change in your career and you change in your interests. That's the beauty of dance too. I mean, you know, what I was interested in 30 years ago when I was 2. Yeah. Thank you. All right, so what I was interested in 30 years ago is very different in what I'm approaching now. Yeah, and dance still has such great, amazing things for me in that. So I also want to realize the only goal isn't that you're just a performer. Yeah, that there's so many things to think about in terms of that. Yeah, we want to perform and all that kind of thing, but there's so many layers to dance.
And I can just jump on for 1 second, and I think you mentioned Broadway as well, and that some people might think of that as more commercial than maybe a ballet or modern dance company. But there's lots of choices that you'll make with something like that as well. Many Broadway artists do go to college first, some go right to Broadway, but then is it, do I have an agent? Do I not have an agent? Should I go to New York? Should I go to LA? There's so many different things, and just to expose yourself to all those options and know what you truly want. And everyone's path, I'll say it again, is different. Some people will end up in the exact same place, but two completely different paths to get there.
So if I was going to just sort of tag on to what they're saying, You don't know what you don't know. And the only way you're going to learn is by asking questions and being curious. There are so many paths, and they've thrown out some great ideas, but you might say, what in the world is commercial? What does that mean? So you need to ask that question. You know, you're not expected to know everything. You may need to make a choice. And somebody may say to you, you know, I think you should start really thinking about becoming a professional dancer at the age of 16. That was a choice that Linda had to make. And she may have said, well, I can always go to college later. Well, if you think that at the age of 29, I'll then, when I'm finished dancing, or 30, I'm going to go back to college, then you say, okay, then I can do that. But know what that means. What do you think it's going to feel like to be 30 and be in school with 18-year-olds? Some of you are 18 now. What would it be like to sit in a classroom with 8-year-olds? Yeah, right. What do you have in common? Not a lot. So you would go to college, but you wouldn't have the college experience. And you say, I still think dance is more important. Then you've made that choice, but you've made it in an informed way. You've thought about it a little bit. You've asked a couple of questions, and you say, I'm making this decision for my future self. But you have to understand when you get to your future self, you can't go back to that 18-year-old and say, gosh, I wish I hadn't made that decision. Because you've made that decision, so now you're on that path. That doesn't mean you're going to stay on that path, but that means that you're on that path. Kind of go into it in an informed way. Ask those questions and then listen.
Excellent. Okay, there's lots of things going in my head, so I apologize if I kind of refocus here. With all of those ideas, there's a lot on the table at the moment, and I think that can feel very overwhelming, and you're thinking, I just want to go take class. You know, how much longer do we have till the next class? And I think that's a really wonderful thing at that age, and I think you need to hang on to that. But with that said, like, how do you keep that going? Because that was one of the things that was really hard for me, was all of a sudden classes went away. Like, I had to figure out, well, when was I going to get to class? And then how was I going to pay for it? Right, because now I have to pay for class. And, you know, in addition to putting together resumes, traveling for auditions, school fees, if you would apply for school fees. So how can you give some advice on how to, because the passion at this level, at this age is so high, how do you kind of manage those? Because I think as a parent, you should hear this from your parents a lot. You know, what are you doing? Where's your paperwork? Did you submit this? Have you written this essay? You know, how do you manage all of those things when you're looking at all the opportunities that are out there for dancers, all the different types of schools that are out there for dancers as well, just to kind of weed through all of those, you know, paths as well, dancer proactive teacher as well. I think some of us start experimenting with teaching at this age too. High school, you start working with your own teachers, working with younger kids, learning from that. So I'm laying out a broad question here, but
I think one thing that is inherent in all dancers, and I think is one of our greatest gifts, is that we're always willing to learn, always want to learn, and will always continue to learn. And you have a job as a dancer. As you're preparing, actually I have a young niece who's an aspiring ballerina as well, and she's just about to embark on the audition world. And one of the things I shared with her is it's a full-time job to get a job sometimes. So you have to educate yourself. You have to know what all those opportunities are that are out there. Like you said earlier, who are the people that can help you and guide you? Knowing those decisions that Pam just talked about, what you want to make, but you have to do that work, and you have to prepare the resume. You have to, and there are people to help you, as we said, but you have to learn, and you have to know where those opportunities are. When are our auditions? Does it make sense for me to, if they're all in New York, I'm going to go to New York at this time and be able to do multiple auditions, but you also have to know who and what you want to audition for. So I think, as I said, our skill as a dancer to learn is something that is of such value, and something that you're really going to need to use, because you really have to educate yourself and take the opportunities that can support that. And if you have a support system around you, the community, your parents, your teachers, us, you know, that helps.
I want to say it's not always New York City either. You know, life in New York City sounds so glamorous. We're going to New York City. It is really hard to be in New York City, sleeping on this much space and paying $1,000 a month, and where you get $1,000, how many, waitress jobs and second jobs, and there's an audition and it's up in Brooklyn, and then, 2 hours later you need to be somewhere else, but then, you need to be working. There are some great dance companies, and there's some great dance places that are not New York City, where you can have Cleveland. You can have a house. I mean, we have a wonderful dancer in our community, dancing for one of the professional companies now, who had danced for a company in New York for many years, and she's here. And every time we bring a company, she of course seems to know most of the dancers in the company, because they don't all dance with one company. They dance with a number of companies. And even the best and the largest companies in New York do not give you a full year of employment, and they don't always have health insurance. We had one of the most major dance companies in New York here last year, and we were the last gig before they were unemployed for 3 weeks, and they all had to go on unemployment. One of the largest dance companies in the United States. So it is a tough life. But every time the companies come, she'll pull the dancer. You ought to try to find a job in Cleveland. We have a 3-bedroom house with a yard and a dog, and I'm paying less than I paid for rent in a 500 square foot apartment, and life is really good here. We really have a great life, and I'm dancing, and life is wonderful. So it sounds glamorous to go to New York, and I wouldn't discourage you from trying it, but it's not the only place that there's great dance, that you can have a wonderful life. So I'm just trying to feed into what I'm hearing you say.
Well, and I think touching upon what company life is like might be a little bit of a, it's not what we think it is. You want to continue on that? I mean, we're talking about these really big companies, and you still have a layoff. What does that mean, and how many times do you have a layoff throughout the year? Because even bigger companies, you do a show, you might have 1 or 2 weeks layoff anyway. What does that mean? And dancing for multiple companies, maybe also elaborating on that, I'm not sure.
Well, I can talk from the companies that we bring. I mean, I was really surprised. We hire a dance company, and they come with their dancers, and then all of a sudden the next year we bring another dance company, and I go, weren't you just here last year with, this company? And now, they picked up dancers for this company. Getting work made in New York City, let me just talk a little bit about that, because we're commissioning a work with a dancer named Camille Brown. And she is an amazing young dance maker in her early 30s. She's got this real sense of community, of being African American, of creating work. She has a company of dancers, and she will call around in the morning, and she will find that she can get 2 hours of rehearsal space at the Mark Morris Studios in Brooklyn, and she'll call all her dancers going, can you get there by noon? We can have it from noon to 2. And they get there. They all work really hard to get there. And it's like, well, I was supposed to work. Well, can you get off work? Yeah, I just lost my job by getting off work because I'm waiting tables, and listen. So they all get there, and then she gets on the phone and she finds out that they can get into the Ailey Studios, from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock, or from 10 o'clock p.m. till midnight. And that's the next day. So every day you walk into a different studio, you kind of have to acclimate. It's really hard. You try to pick up where you left off. There's no consistency. It's really hard to get work made. So one of the things that we're doing as an organization is trying to figure out how we can be better helpers to dance makers to get work made. That's something that Dance Cleveland can try to do. These dancers then are not just dancing for Camille. In order to make a life, they're dancing for 2 or 3 other companies. And all of a sudden this company gets a tour, and they're going to be gone for 3 weeks. Well, these dancers are also working with these other companies, and they'll say, well, I'm going to be gone for 3 weeks, but I need you here. Well, now they have to make a choice. This is a real paid gig. And now they're going to lose their goodwill over here. And they get 3 weeks, and then they come back, and they're going to sublet, 3 weeks of subletting their house and getting their lives, and then they're back and they have to go find other jobs. So it's not. I mean, Tom lived in New York, and Tom's worked in a number of companies too. I mean, there's people sitting in this room who've had these experiences. Sounds very romantic. It sounds very glamorous. It's really hard. It's really, really hard. So dance companies who are really successful in touring, they come here, they hit Cleveland, they go, wait, what city are we in? We're in Cleveland? Let's see, they were 24 hours ago. In a week, they might have 4 or 5 performances, and they have to sleep in strange beds, in different hotels, get to an airport, fly to the next city. Sometimes they get that afternoon off, sometimes they're in rehearsal as soon as they hit the ground, and then they're performing again. It's exhausting. It's exhausting. And dancers have an opportunity to get injured when they're tired. As you all know, you probably all sustained some level of an injury. And health insurance and being able to go to a doctor is really important. And very few dance companies offer a full year of employment with health insurance. You know, Philadelphia in Philadelphia is one. They offer their dancers a full year contract with health insurance. I mean, there's probably only a few dozen companies that do that. If you can get into one of those companies, it's like you hit the lottery. I mean, but they are few and far between, quite frankly. So it's, you know, it's life in a dance company can be difficult, and those are the questions, you know, it's, you go to the audition, you get the job, but, you know, what are the other questions you need to have answered for your own life? Your parents can help you with those, too, but.
But in terms of schedule and things like that, with a major ballet company, you know, it is. Sometimes it's 20-something weeks, sometimes it's 40-something weeks, but basically it's class and warm-up every day, and many of you know all this. But, and then rehearsals all day long. You're going to shift from one thing to another with your resident artistic director to guests that are coming in. And Cleveland Ballet was unique in that when we went into the theater, our schedule shifted from an 8-hour rehearsal day to a 12-hour rehearsal day, 6 days a week. So that ability to take care of yourself and to take care of your body, and even as an artist that's looking for work, it's so important to maintain your technique and maintain your craft while you're an artist at the same time. And you really have to take care of your instrument and always train and always take care of that. But it's different a little bit. I was thinking about the Broadway dancers and those that have come through on a national tour or with a Broadway company, and even though they have a job, and sometimes it's for a year or a year and a half, they already have to start thinking about the next job, because someday that show is going to end. So they may be here on tour in Cleveland and take 2 personal days to run back to New York to do an audition for the next show. And so it's always that one step ahead, and so many things that you have to maintain about your craft and about your work at the same time. And I think it's even more different for a freelance artist. And as a freelance artist, you may not just be a dancer as a freelance artist, you may be a choreographer. There was a choreographer that we worked with in Cleveland. We did the Drew Carey show, so television. The choreographer was a former dancer with Twyla Tharp's company, and he went on to choreograph on Broadway, but now he primarily choreographs for Broadway and television. I mean, television and film. And, but that's a gig-by-gig job, even though he's worked with Mel Gibson and Diane Keaton and Twyla Tharp, you don't know where the next job is coming from. So there's so many entry points, like you said, Lynn, and so many different journeys, and just being aware of it, and it's an incredible journey, and it all starts with that love, like you said, and you'll take whatever you need to do to get there.
Yeah, I'm going to take it back to almost where we started, which is, you know, as you're studying now, find out the business end if you're at a studio yet. You have your teachers and, you know, offer your help in terms of that. So you start gaining those kind of skills. When it comes to creating dances for whatever performances there's coming, start to find out the process. Yes, not just being there for learning a particular piece, but maybe going in and watching the process that someone is doing with another group is really important, because you learn from everything that you watch. Your body is your instrument, and I know some of you taken the injury prevention and the nutrition. You have to learn about that, yeah, because we all think we're sort of invincible in a certain way. Well, I can go longer. I mean, I can go without much sleep, and you'll find out that that's not true. Maybe you can do it for a little bit of time, so the more you can learn about that and apply it to what you're doing as a dancer, the better with this.
Yeah, so I'm gonna keep on that kind of idea. So there is that possibility of injury. There's the possibility of, you know, I just can't do this anymore. I don't want to live out of this case. I have a place to live. Maybe you want to change your path, per se. There are lots of different options out there if you're choose that you don't want to continue continue the performance aspect anymore and you want to go somewhere else. So I think, Linda, you're a great example of that, you know, being a strong dancer, but finding these paths and finding another way to be involved, but continuing that and how you found that strength. But I have like 2 pages of possibilities, from dance therapist to makeup artist to videographer to notator. We haven't discussed that a lot. Critic, the writing aspect of that, from grant writing to critic. The things that kind of go along with dance, yoga, Pilates, Martinian fundamentals, Alexander technique, Feldenkrais, all these sort of possibilities that are out there. And so I'm just going to kind of, this maybe lends a little bit to education as well and how to prepare yourself, but to think about that, I think that's something that you need to start with even if you want to be a performer, because that's part of that performance life.
There's a lot that's about respect. There's a quote I have in my office, and I should have brought it with me, but to have respect for everything else that's happening around you and be aware of it, like you said, to understand what I could never stand on the state theater stage, it's who I am, but, and not be aware of what was happening around me. I understood, I always made an effort to understand why the schedule was the way it was, how that affected the stagehands, all those different components that happened to make the entire evening and season and company come together. And I just lost my train of thought. But it was, oh shoot. Go.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. I lost my. So in terms of, no, it's all right. You know what, I'm going to take it to, because I'm at a university, the focus changes every few years, where dance is, what the sort of focus is. We've been in community dance, right? Taking dance into the community, and thank goodness for that. That's a really, really, really important deal. That dance isn't just for us in our spaces, but that we go in and because everyone's an artist in a certain way, right? So there's a real move to get everyone moving so that they understand what they're seeing when they come into a theater. And you know, we've all, even as dancers, we've all sat and been at a performance and you don't know what's going on. And yet, if you have a time where you have connected in with the choreographer or maybe the dancers have been taught something, you get a connection with it. So that's one thing, but I'm going to take it to dance and healthcare right now. It's a booming thing. So anyone who has any interest in that, and I don't just mean, you know, obviously I can tell you several dancers personally who have just gone in to become physical therapists. Yes, they're dancing, but they're also doing physical therapy. But also dance is an expressive art, just moving with people who have health problems. For instance, dance, there's dance for Parkinson's disease, there's dance for people with dementia. All of those avenues are so important that open your mind out to that, because it's really important. I think dancers are in a really important place right now in terms of that. I think people are finally starting to recognize, you know, how good we end up feeling. Somebody with some kind of body problem or issue, they can feel the same way, maybe in a different way. So, does
Well,
that
also how smart we are.
Exactly.
Yeah, seriously, I learned that not enough, but I think that it's growing more that we are very smart, educated people, even though we're not just the dumb jock, dumb dancer scenario. I think we're breaking out of that mold. Is that the right?
We can count past 8, yes.
Yeah.
Especially when it's Stravinsky. But I do remember what I was going to say, and it's really how smart we are. And even if you choose a path other than something that's this closely related to dance, whatever you're going to do, the skills you have as a dancer are going to serve you beyond compare to many of our compatriots in the world today. I can't tell you how many articles I read about a dancer can do this, 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 and this. So don't lose sight of those as well. But you had asked about I made a couple different transitions in my career, and I was really blessed that they were really two perfect transitions. And one was, the first one was a very obvious one, to go from a dancer to be a member of the faculty in the school and a member of the artistic staff and a ballet mistress, and to train and coach and rehearse the dancers, and that was a wonderful journey. But then to make the journey, which is similar to what Pam has now, even though we came at it from very different angles as a presenter, everything that I learned at that time serves me well now. As I said, it's understanding all those different things, it's understanding those contracts and all of that. And you also mentioned that you think you're on a journey and it takes you this way, but sometimes you're on a journey and you absolutely achieve your dream. That's what I did. All I wanted to do was to be a ballerina, and I was. But then there comes a point, even when you have that dream, that the path needs to go another way. And all of those opportunities that we have can take you there. So it's a beautiful journey, and I can't wait for you all to continue to take the next steps, and dance will serve you so well along the way.
I have sort of a list of the sort of top 10 things, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but a couple of the things that we're sort of articulating at this point is that you really need to grow skills. Like, I don't know how many of you were at the dance showcase last night that Linda so wonderfully put together and presented. But if you were there with friends, or if you were there with parents, you know, did you have a chance to talk about it? Did you say, I really liked this piece, or I love the way this dancer moved? And then to be able to articulate it, try that out, try talking about it, try something that you felt innately and turn it into language. That's not so easy, you know, but you have to practice it. Read a book. You know, you're in English class. Not another English class. You know, I don't know what you read in high school English, you know. The Great Gatsby. The green light at the end of the dock. What does that green light mean? Can you articulate that? What would that mean? Is that a journey? Is that an emotional light? What is a light? So take everything you're doing in school, from math to English to everything. Think about how you articulate it. That's creating an inner landscape that is going to feed your dance. It's going to create the artistic person that you are. It's going to take your art to the next level. A choreographer is going to ask you to pull something, and you're going to have to look at them blankly. I have no idea what you're talking about. The more you know, the more you're able to respond in life. Those are really wonderful. If you aren't reading Dance Magazine, I encourage you. A lot of the things we're talking about today, there were articles about dancers in the next step of their lives. There was a wonderful article about a woman who looks like she's incredibly successful. She's on Broadway, and in the middle of the day, she has to run to auditions and do the kinds of things we're talking about. There's talks about dancers into the next, what are they doing now? They're going back to school, they're trying other things. This is what life looks like. Here, there'll be interesting information about summer programs. You need to go out and be in summer programs. You need to figure out how to audition. There's great things about colleges and universities. If you aren't getting this magazine, shame on you. You're getting this and reading it every single month. And I get nothing for telling you that.
Royalties.
No, I mean, you know, quite frankly, if you're not if you think you want to be a dancer and you want to be in this art form, if you aren't even reading about dance, then you're not serious. If you want to be serious about this, then you got to be serious about this. I want to talk a couple of great examples. You need to see dance.
Yes.
You don't have to come to Dance Cleveland performances. You can go to college performances. You can go to high school performances. There's some great high school dance programs here. You can go to the local dance companies you saw in the showcase last night. Find out when they're going to be performing. And you have to pay for a ticket. You want somebody to buy a ticket when you're performing one day, you have to buy a ticket now and support that company, because that's what that's about. Go see it, talk about it, hear about it, listen to the lecture, learn, see what you like. We had a young man who was in a master class a year ago, and he was taking dance because I think he was a little bit too small to be an athlete, which is probably what his dreams were, but he was falling in love with dance, but he was a little discouraged. And so he came to see Lines Ballet, and he and his mom were in the lobby. And after the post Q&A and everything's emptying out, I see him, and he had been in the master class, and I said, oh, you know, you came, and he's staying. He goes, I had no idea dance could be like this. Well, you'd only seen a Nutcracker. And he's I mean, he had no idea that contemporary ballet could be this physical. And he suddenly could see himself in a role. You know, we have coming in January, the International Association of Blacks in Dance, and Playhouse Square is helping to support that activity. And one of the companies, there are going to be student showcases, there's going to be local showcases, and there are going to be 5 of the most remarkable dance companies in the world, each doing a performance in a showcase kind of thing. And there's going to be lectures and things, and you have an opportunity to come and see that. Lulu Washington Dance had the opportunity to work with James Cameron. I don't know if you saw Avatar, the movie. Well, all of those incredible creatures moved. How do you think the movement for all of that was created? So she has a dance company, and she was hired to create the movement and choreography for that movie. Because she said to James Cameron, I think that this is how this creature should move. And he said, that's exactly what's been in my head. And he had never worked really with a dancer or a choreographer before. So opportunities come from crazy, wonderful places, but you're open to them, you've read, you've learned, you're learning, you're watching, you're participating, you're raising your hand and volunteering. Who wants to lug this stuff to the theater? Well, I do. Well, while you're in there, you get to see something. And that one thing that you saw that you didn't expect, that could be the game changer. Any and every day, it could be a game changer. So be ready, be aware, be thinking, be trying, be asking, asking questions. There's incredible people around you, all resources.
Yeah, I think the getting out and seeing dance is a really great thing to mention. One of the things is that, classes, I was going to say even local festivals, learn the free dance, that's a great festival to learn there. There's no one better to learn from than those who've done it for years and years. It's amazing the people you can meet there. You never know who you can meet at places like that. And I would also recommend when you go to see these places, take people with you. Take your best friend, take your mom, take your dad, take your grandma, take other people to see it with you and get them excited, because I think that's part of our job too, of wanting to be professional dancers and we need an audience. We need to help build that audience and expose as many people as we can. That's part of who we are, even if we want to be performers. So we've covered a lot of things. Is there anything specific that you've thought about or had questions about, or how do I write my first resume? What kind of things do I put on it? Do I need a portfolio? Do I need anything? Do you have any?
Can you do us a favor, because teaching has come up in your comments. I'm wondering if you could speak to this group about the value of high-quality dance teaching and help us know how we can continue to dispel that. If you can't, if you can, you dance. If you can't, you teach it. Now,
Yes.
Can you bust that one up for us, please?
Well, the thing is, and I think we've touched on it, just the whole idea, that there's such intelligence, yes, and that as a dancer, you need to share what you know, and part of your expressiveness is what you know, yeah? And so that comes out in teaching, and you learn so much about yourself when you teach, because you have to translate whatever the feeling state is or whatever you're trying to get across from your body to someone else. And also, as you teach, the whole thing we've been talking about, really looking at things, yeah, really observing. Because as you teach, that's one of the amazing things you really start to watch. And then that feeds your dance, and you can start to get the language that you can to speak to someone about what you're seeing on stage, to speak to someone about how you're going to get this movement to change in some way. All of that is so very important. So the teaching is so tied into everything that we do. It's very seldom, I think, that anyone goes through dance without having to teach in some way at some point in time. Pam teaches through the history and all those kind of things. Linda's always teaching from all the people that you deal with, and I'm sure you taught. Yeah, you'll find that you will be teaching at some point or another, and in doing that, to be a good teacher, you really have to be willing to constantly learn. Yeah, keep figuring things out.
Ms. Leah, can I add on to that?
Yeah.
But also you have to know your calling. You have to know that is that your gift? You know what I'm saying? Is that your gift? Because people that teach, and I see this a lot, that's why I'm very picky about who teach my students. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes they can learn wrong qualities. You know what I'm saying? But the teacher that they the teacher that they bring in, you have to go get your training. You have to be in class. You have to want class. You have to become class. So it's all about training, and then getting your own vision and getting your own style, what is you, before you transcend into someone else. Thank you.
Kelly, are you also talking about the quality of teachers and
The concept that teaching is, okay, I'm 17 and I want to be a professional. Sure, I'll teach when I'm done with that part. I guess at some point, anybody in here who pursues dance as a career is going to come to a crossroads where they will have that choice and what the passion is. And for me, particularly in pursuing dance education as a first choice career, I had dance faculty in university settings looking at me like I was crazy. Why would you want to do that first? You can always do that later. And I find that sort of argument exists in so many places in our field that I'd like everybody in this room to know that if their passion happens to be sharing this art form with students, that is as noble and as artistic and as hard a work and path as it is to pursue creating or performing the choreography of another artist.
And I have a colleague who danced with me at the ballet, and she actually probably retired in her 20s, which is usually not the path. So she did it a little bit, but her calling was to teach. And she's since gone on to do amazing things. But without the teachers, none of us are where we are today or where we want to be. So it's, yeah, you're exactly right. Can I say one more thing? You reminded me of something. After the performance last night, I spoke with Alejandro Cerruto, who's the choreographer of the Hubbard Street piece you saw last night, and we'll be back when we present Wendy Whalen and Restless Creature. And one of the things he said that came up in conversation, and it sort of maybe related in a way as well, is why did you start to choreograph? And he said, because I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn how to be a better dancer. And he said one of the things that Wendy decided, she's come from being a ballerina into this very contemporary dance world, and one of her goals in all of this as well was to learn. And we can't do that without the teachers that we have and the experiences that we have. So.
Well, speaking to what you were saying, I think you were talking about quality. I did the same thing. I chose teaching that's what I just decided I really want to do. It's my passion. And one of the hardest things as a director is finding a good dance teacher. There's all kinds of people who come to me who can dance so better than I could have ever dreamed of dance, and they're beautiful dancers, lots of professional experience, can't teach. They can't teach Tondu. I mean, and so you have these kids who are at this level and then they go down because you picked the wrong, because they didn't know how to teach. You have to learn pedagogy, or you have to learn how to teach. So it's not just enough to know it. You have to be able to impart that knowledge to people who don't know it, or who don't have your body type, don't have your ability to pick things up as quickly. I mean, that's really hard, because if we want to perpetuate this path, we have to be able to teach younger generations, and they're always changing. Those groups are always changing. You should really have to learn how to be a good teacher if you're going to teach. Really take the time to learn teaching. Don't just go out and get your career as a dancer. Learn how to teach.
Everyone learns differently.
Yeah.
Learning.
I think there's in my observation, the teacher that I was 30 years ago is not the teacher that I am today, thank God. I'm really happy about that. It's an ever-changing landscape, and yet I still continue to see and experience what you experience, beautiful dancers who are still teaching the way teaching was done 30 years ago. Well, that's a skill set. Teaching pedagogy is a skill set that is, sometimes you have a natural gift for, but it is also a learned skill. And there are pieces to it that are important in order for you as an educator to get your students to higher ground. You have to stay abreast of the trends in pedagogy and teaching. And there's something with dance though that, and this is just my perception, it's not like proven fact, I have done no research on it, so don't take my word for it. But I've observed really great pedagogy with really great, with students who really can understand the material, come away with a lot of information in their bodies and in their minds, and then I see really great movement, and the pedagogy, and the students struggle because the pedagogy isn't there. Because this lovely person who has all this knowledge does not know how to disseminate the knowledge, does not know how to get it across so that their students can feel what she feels or he feels inside as a dancer performer. So I can't say enough that my greatest teachers are who I channel whenever I'm teaching. Lynn was one of my teachers back in the day. And so I'm so grateful, and I get to watch her evolve as a teacher too. She's not teaching the same way she taught 23 years ago, but it's so great to see teachers grow and learn and pass that torch on to their students. So I put that up there as well. You know, you've got pedagogy is an art form all by itself, but dance pedagogy still is kind of sort of chugging along.
And it's like a dancer, that you're not the same dancer you were 30 years ago, and it goes back to, I think, something Pam said too, about how important it is, whether you're a teacher or a dancer, to continue to see work